Looks like we've got a good group in already. Others will come in as time goes on, but we'll kick things off. Awesome to see everyone here. Thanks for making a bit of time on a Tuesday afternoon to come and tag along and listen to Shri and I talk all things governance. I can see some familiar names and faces from the previous session in part one, and good to see some others that have joined in as well. Yeah, really excited to follow on from a successful one in December. And really the natural progression now is to start talking around the implementation and management of successful data governance. I'll do a bit of housekeeping and some instructions first, a bit about who we are at Revenite, and then hand over to the guest of honor, Shri. But yeah, look, first off, last time we saved all the questions for the end, and while that was good, I think I want to try and make this as interactive as possible. So after each topic or after each slide, I'll try and answer questions, and please feel free to ask them as we go. So on the right hand on your screen and on Demio, there's a function to bring out a chat bar. You can probably all see it already. People talking now, and yeah, feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar, and I'll do my best to answer them as we go. The other thing in interaction with the platform is that we run polls and questionnaires just to get a sense of where people are in their journey, what people are doing in the governance space right now or not at all, and that can be found in the same function. So I'll call out when those pop up and let you know how to find them throughout the event. But look, before we go into the we'll do a bit of a background on part one, just a bit of a recap for people that may have forgotten over the Christmas break. It's been a couple of months, or the people that are new to the webinar series. But first, we'll do a bit of a background on Revenite for those who don't know too much about us. So look, Revenite are a cloud analytics and business intelligence consultancy based in Melbourne, and really our bread and butter has been data analytics, business intelligence across the Microsoft ecosystem, and we're a gold partner to their organization, and that's seen strategic work, delivery, and support across a host of different industries. As we've seen, and as probably all of you are aware, and why you're attending, is that with the growth and importance of data at the moment, data governance has become a really apparent sector and something that's pretty crucial to businesses, and we've acknowledged that and seen the demand from our clients. So what's naturally formed is a well-established data governance practice in the business, and really that's to support the core offering and the core capability of Revenite, but really is to support our clients and organizations through their data maturity journey. And look, the work to date really has been end-to-end, helping shape strategies. There's been, building of steering committees, working together to form frameworks, policies, even all the way through to, integration of tools or products, and really all that change management activity around the people and process. I know Shri's going to touch on more of that in a second, but really how to change that and embed data governance inside a business. And that's really what's formed in a strategic partnership with Elation, also working with tools like Microsoft Purview through that gold partnership. And as always, we're a solution provider, and really we take a pragmatic approach to this, and create something or a solution to fit an individual's or specific needs. But yeah, that's enough about us. I'll pass it over to the man we want to hear from, and that's Shri.
Your day's been good. It's beautiful outside. Hope you all got a chance to stretch your legs and walk outside. My name is Sri Ram, and my current role is data governance lead, and I have been working in the governance space for about three and a half years now, and over the time I've learned quite a bit about the do's and don'ts of data governance, scaling up data governance programs, managing and implementing data governance tools, and embedding them into business and whatnot. Again, it's a long journey, and what we are going to talk about are purely my learnings, and the learnings I have learned the hard way, and the learnings I've learned from experts like you all, sharing knowledge and contributing to forums and roundtables and whatnot. And Outside of work, when I'm not thinking about data or data governance, I am an active cyclist, a mentor, and a climate activist. And I enjoy everything I do. Revenite and team, thanks for the opportunity, and it's been really a great pleasure working with you all and sharing my knowledge and expertise on the topic.
Likewise, Sri. It's been a good couple of years working with one another, and I'm sure there's probably many more webinars and sessions that we'll have in the future. But look, let's jump into it. We'll start off with a bit of a recap.
Yeah.
First off, and talk around the main topics and focus that we had during preparation and planning. But before we do that, I think one of the first things we really talked about is where data governance sits in relation to information management upstream, and also what sits downstream of data governance. So we feel that data governance is underneath the entirety of the information management umbrella, but really when we're talking about data governance, it isn't just one specific thing. I think people can tend to, they within their specific organization or the problems they're facing, they tend to think it is a single item or a problem, but there's a lot of things that fall under that, and that can be anything from ownership, classification, security, there's quality, and more as well. And I think that one of the first things that Sri mentioned in the last webinar, or part one in the preparation stage, is really around defining what governance means to your organization and why, in capitals, you're going to invest time in this, and why it's going to be important for your business. So that was how we really kicked things off, and I'll hand it over to Shred again to give you a bit of a background on preparation and planning before we jump into the main topic, and that's going to be implementation and management.
Thanks, Remy. So what we sort of discussed is back to basics. In the first session, we looked at what is data governance and what is the scope, the depth and breadth of governance. And as data professionals, you all have experienced in some shape or form of what are the different flavors of data governance. And my work has so far been involved adopting or following Dharma framework, Timbuk, and that sort of sets the scene or the boundary for the roles I have been holding. But when an organization is about to embark on a data governance journey, or thinking about, okay, we've got problems in our data landscape and how we want to start governance activities, it all comes down to the question of, what's the burning issue? What are we trying to solve? And what do we expect this governance program to solve or clear up issues? Is it related to security? Are our data assets not secure, unauthorized accesses or accidental breaches? Or is it related to compliance? We are expected to keep our data secure and accurate all the time, and we are unable to adhere to it. Or issues with data quality, our reports are incorrect and we are unable to get the insights we expect to get from our data that we have access to. For understanding those sort of why are we doing it will allow the program to create a scope and a purpose. And then we touched on approaches. What sort of approaches are what's the art of possible? We looked at top down and bottom up, and the top down being an enterprise focused. We look at everything from an enterprise and downwards, and we sort of said my experience is recommending an enterprise approach, because governance in a bottom-up approach, which is a siloed or a tactical approach addressing a specific problem within a specific business unit, may or may not be sustainable in terms of cost, resources, and an enterprise strategy. So from there, in the last session, we touched on about planning. What are the things we need to be mindful of while planning for a governance program? Understanding drivers. What's the organizational strategy, what's the technology strategy, and what's data strategy, and alignment on definitions. What do we mean by governance? What do we mean by the various aspects of governance and the role those aspects play in implementing or scaling up a governance program? At the same time, it's important to sort of work with key drivers of success. How do we define success in this scenario, and identify a business problem, build a business case, seek some executive sponsorship or a seed funding. Identify what is that proof of concept is going to look like, and have some sort of tangible benefits associated with it. And now in the next two steps, we're going to talk about implementation and management. We're going to deep dive into that. From the planning session, we have identified a problem, a business problem, which is going to become a proof of concept, and we talked about securing sponsorship, and now we're talking about how do we implement that, how do we actually do the doing for that proof of concept, and create a governance journey. And
To the background.
I'll pause for a second and ask if there are any questions on the first two. If there are, then I would rather address those questions to provide the context for the topics we're about to discuss.
Yeah, that's a good point. And the other thing I was going to notify is I've chucked something in the chat, and there's also a poll just to see where, our listeners and people are in their journey currently, just to get a gauge of, where the maturity is for you guys. But yeah, look, if there's any questions, feel free to pop it in the chat, and it's probably a good time to prelude a bit of I guess how we came about the conversation, and also the questions that we're going to ask on each topic. That's really how these slides and this material and the webinar came about. Is Shri was a constant and kind of my helper for building the data governance forums that we used to hold in roundtables. So, through multiple discussions with people in this industry, the questions we're going to ask across implementation management are kind of born from those discussions, people's interests, and what was really talking points throughout those roundtables. So that's really how we came about this material. But I'll jump over. Feel free to fill out the poll as we go, as well as fire any questions into that chat on the right. But really, the first one I think, Shri, we decided on was, and I think you talked about it just then. You've said that a proof of value or a proof of concept is something that is needed. What makes a proof of value or a project like that tangible to the business? And then, obviously an example of how you've seen that work in the past would be awesome too.
Yep. Thanks, Remy. So continue on building that. How do we implement that proof of concept? So there is a business problem that was identified. So I'll give you an example from one of my previous organizations where we're trying to target data literacy as a problem. A context around it is multiple data analysts, multiple data repositories, knowledge that is held up in multiple SMEs' heads, and there is no way collectively to tap into that knowledge. So that the problem we were trying to solve was, how can we create a platform that will allow us to physicalize that knowledge that is held up in different pockets of the business, operations, finance, sales, and so on. So in order to sort of address that problem, we looked at the DAMA framework and look at, okay, we picked up three key items, data cataloging, business glossary, and data lineage. So it sort of helps to tell a story about business users trying to understand where they could find the data they need, or where they could access or find and look at the reports they need to access. So that's the use case we're sort of looking at. And in order to implement that particular use case, it required a framework. So the first step we did was create a framework, adopting the DAMA principles and data principles. We created a framework on what is our governance framework going to look at. And once we've looked at the framework, it's gone through a process of consultation, feedback from various stakeholder groups within the business, such as enterprise architecture, cybersecurity, general managers of the business, consultative approach to getting feedback on, hey, we're going to do this, is it going to work, yes or no? And then the feedback formulated the framework, and then we moved on to the next step, is about identifying users in the journey. We call them personas. This is predominantly adopting a design thinking or a user-centered, human-centered design approach. Is like, okay, who are the people that are part of this journey, and creating a persona for them. An example would be, we talk about it in the main management phase as well. We look at data owners, data stewards, enterprise architects, data engineers. They all have a role to play in addressing that particular use case. Once we've identified the personas, the next step was to create an operating model. Okay, how are we all going to work together? We know the problem, we have a methodology, the framework to work together, we have the people. Now we need to work out an operating model on how can we bring this to life, who has a role to play, and what is that, and how are we going to work together to address that particular issue. Then the next part is about the rhythm, about delivery. Is the approach we took is a time boxed activity for over 3 6 months, with specific deliverables, and it's an experimentation, iterative delivery. We attempt to do something, we do it for a few months, we pause, review the results, seek feedback from our stakeholder groups, and then we draft out the learnings, and then we go back to the drawing board, and then move forward to the next phase of this next phase of the implementation. So those are the four key things would sort of help to understand what's the scope of this work. In our case, the data literacy work. What were the users doing before we undertook this exercise, and what sort of benefit we delivered as part of this. Once we delivered this, what is it going to change? So the business benefit in that scenario was, in the past, users were trying to locate the data assets on their own, was time consuming, or in the absence of a guide, they were creating their own self-service shadow BI functions. But the outcome of this initiative is to provide a platform that will allow users to tap into enterprise assets, search and locate, simple search, enterprise access to everybody. We're able to identify the data assets and the reports that were built using those data what do you call, schemas or tables, and it sort of provided that data catalog view to the business.
Awesome. Thanks, Sri. I think one of the most important ones there is probably the final one, right? Iterative delivery. It may seem obvious, but it's definitely not going to be the first time, and it probably takes a lot of work. And yeah, sometimes I mean, through those roundtables, people said that data governance can be isolating and a bit hard. It's normally a single person that's driving that or responsible for it. So yeah, look, it's not going to be work 100% off the bat. So yeah, it's all around taking feedback, working out how you can actually better the things that you're doing, and it's going to be a continuous process.
Yeah, in our scenario, it's the success is the business partnerships. I'll go dive a little bit deeper into the business partnership a little bit, and why it was critical for our success is because the knowledge that we were talking about earlier on, the objective, we're trying to physicalize the knowledge that's in people's head into an application or a platform. It requires engagement and time commitment. We literally, the project or the POC was at the mercy of the business SMEs time. Without those partnership and those executive buy-in, it's very hard to engage those SMEs and seek their time and sit down and work out a plan. And even though it's a 3-month exercise, it requires significant time commitment. And that's the reason why we focused so much on executive engagement is we are unable to show value if we don't have the expertise. My knowledge is very limited, and it's all about the business users, and we could sort of show the value, what comes back if we are able to do this.
And that is going to become even more important, that next phase of management. And I'm sure you'll provide a bit more, even deeper context to that. But you're absolutely right. But yeah, to your point around actually creating a data catalog or a platform or a tool, right? People and process is just one, two of the three aspects that we see for success, and the third is probably technology. So when we're looking at tools in particular, we were talking around how important they really are, how important they are in this journey, and how do you determine that right fit between product and then also enterprise when you're assessing tools in line with your overall data strategy.
Yeah, tools. As we all know, technology is an enabler, and it can change I guess, our lives for the better. Again, it's important to strike a balance between what a technology can do to the problem we are trying to solve. Is So I'll give you the example. I'll continue on the same example. We implemented the POC was done on Calibra, our platform for data governance. So predominantly focusing on cataloging, metadata management, creating lineage, reporting catalogs, and business glossary and whatnot. So that was the use case, right? So it's important to identify the right tool for the job, but there are prerequisites to it. So selecting a tool is one part to it, and the reason why a tool is required is because it helps improve efficiencies. Imagine conducting a cataloging exercise across 6 business units. It's done by 6 different people, and information could either be stored in SharePoint or Excel, which is only accessible by that particular business unit. Otherwise, no one knows that particular knowledge base existed, and could potentially leave the business if that particular person leaves the business. So the knowledge is, there's a risk to enterprise because of that approach in the absence of a tool. And I did work in enterprises where information was actually held in SharePoint and maintained in SharePoint. But again, SharePoint has its benefits. It is only fit for that one particular purpose. Publishing definitions or business glossary, it can be done in SharePoint, no problems with that. But what else can a tool do if we want to bring in a tool for governance? SharePoint may or may not be the right tool for tracking lineage, may or may not be the right tool for accessing enterprise reports or providing a catalog of enterprise reports, may or may not enable classification, may or may not enable various other things that, according to Dharma framework that we look at, is, so it's important to think about a tool. And while we think about a tool, even though our use case was data literacy, we did think about what else can a tool do in the governance journey. What is our 2, 3, 5-year strategy? Are we looking at doing MDM and RDM, master data management and reference data management? It can be done by a tool. Are we looking at monitoring data quality? It has to be done by a tool, even though it's manually possible. But again, enterprise has a scalability, benefit of scalability and efficiency if it's done by a tool. So there's more to it rather than that question of around, can we use a tool to do it? Yes, we can use a tool. And once it's sort of, the problem statement sort of links towards that, okay, we got to get this benefits from the tool, then the important thing to sit down is with enterprise. How would this tool sit within the enterprise and the interoperability between the existing enterprise applications? Say, for example, enterprise has an Azure cloud. Is it possible to deploy through an enterprise Azure instance? And how would it operate with the data repositories? Because in order to, for example, metadata management, in order to harvest lineage, this tool is expected to be connected to other data sources to bring in the metadata, harvest it, and then create a lineage that is consumable by the business. So how would that work? Costs associated with it, maintenance, platform scalability. There's a lot of other things that an enterprise would look at if a tool is the way forward. And the technology strategy and data strategy sort of looks at what that is. And then eventually it will formulate into an activity of an RFP. What are the available tools in the market? We've got multiple, we've got a lot of tools in governance space that have been there for a long time. SAS, Informatica, Calibra, Alation, Atacama, Purview, Microsoft's Purview. There's lots of tools coming. It's about identifying what is the problem we're trying to address, what is the business strategy in terms of data governance, what are we aiming to achieve over the next 2 to 3 to 5 years, and how would this tool sit in an enterprise. So that's sort of three aspects to that.
Of a couple of products or tools there are in the industry, and it's a forever growing space, and yeah, it seems to be every 6 months there is a new tool or a new use case that's being addressed through that. So once again, I'm keen to see what people are using. Obviously, we've worked across a number of them at Revenite. Shri and I have talked about a lot in our past roundtables, but yeah, I'll open it to the floor and put up a poll now just around yeah, what tools you are using or aren't using currently. But I actually, while I'll do that, I actually had a question for you, Shri, just around that, I guess, the time that you're looking at in terms of tool assessments. You said around, you're looking around that 3 to 5 years. Um, do you typically see that that's a common mistake of businesses, or have you seen in the past that people really just have short-term vision and see one, governance as a project, and they probably assess a tool based off a specific use case or a short time horizon?
Yeah, I mean, it's not a mistake, but it's more like a circumstantial reaction. Because of fundings, budgets, and resource availability, and there's more things in the mix than just one. What I have seen is the enterprise view is it is strategic but acts tactical. So when a problem's happening currently, it has to be remediated. There is a significant business impact, and that use case is the wrong use case to talk about strategy, because there is an immediate impact and the business expects a solution, and technology could provide a solution to immediately remediate that. But that could be done as a POC. However, it may or may not be a throwaway, because the enterprise at that point of time is not ready with a strategic roadmap for 2 to 5. 5 years is a long time. So the immediate the use case is an immediate issue with the business. So the potential solution would be a tactical. So a POC would be like, okay, let's try and do something in SQL Server. We can run some scripts and remediate some data quality issues. However, if the problem is repetitive, I think that's when the discussion should happen, is about, okay, we've remediated in one area. What about the other area? What about the other area? There are problems everywhere which may not surface at that point of time. So it's having those discussions with the business to understand, again, an enterprise view of the problem, even though it's acted on a tactical manner. But it would sort of help to look at, okay, if we do, for example, data cataloging this year, that what is that problem solving? Okay, it helps people to access reports and find out what it is. Okay, now the next year it could be, okay, we've provided access, but we don't know what's the quality of the data is. Well, that would be a 2 year on the 2 year roadmap. It's like, okay, we will look at data quality as a business problem, and we expect this tool to allow us to scale up. And then look at data quality is looking at that. Okay, we have a problem with multiple customer records or multiple sales SKUs or products. Then, okay, an MDM tool would come in. So this is an evolving journey for an organization as it matures its data management practice, and it's highly iterative. If I create a plan today, with the evolution of technology, the business dynamics, things like COVID, everything throws a spanner into the plan, and it has to be. It sort of say, like, you should have that long-term view, like we talked about last time. We got to think global and act local, so we got to have that long-term view, but we address the current issues that are impacting the business and provide solutions.
Sometime in this session. I've used it a lot since part one. No, thanks for that, Shri. That makes a lot of sense. We've got a question come through. Thanks, Evelyn, for that. And this may be a hard one to answer if there's no such thing. But look, is there a tool that can do it all, or in your experience, maybe to the best of all of those things described: data quality, lineage, metadata, reference data? Is there something that you've seen kind of cover all those aspects?
Yeah, there are vendors who provide most of the capabilities. SAS, I've seen SAS do that, Informatica do that, SAP does it to an extent. But again, it has to be relevant to the organization and the challenges an organization is facing, because these are big initiatives. Data quality, MDM is significantly big, and it requires It requires investment in terms of resourcing, in terms of technology, and the ecosystem that the data exists in. Reference data, data modeling is another critical one, depending on the number of data sources that are producing data, having a tool to catalog, to create all that data modeling part. There are tools available, but I have not seen in my experience. I mean, I've been working in the analytics space, data analytics space for about 10 years in different roles. I've never seen an organization do all of them in one with one vendor. It is always a progressive evolution. With a strategy that takes that long term view of we would like to mature as a data management practice. What are the basics we're going to do? Okay, let's look at architecture. Let's look at our enterprise data repository or journey to cloud, and during that process, then look at data quality, MDM, RDM, and DQ, and so on. I'm keen to hear if anyone has, I guess, done or seen that happen in any organization. I would be keen to share notes with you to understand how that project went.
Yeah. Connect with Sri on LinkedIn after, or go through myself. I'll put you in touch with them. If there's a follow-up conversation to be had there. Yeah, I'm sure that with more functionality or more ability a tool has, is probably a bigger price tag as well. Hey, we've got one more question that's coming here from Adam. How do you manage stakeholder expectations as to what they're going to get during the implementation of a tool? So much of a tool's success has to do with people's capability and ongoing processes, which really unfolds post-implementation. Yeah.
That's a very good question, Ari. That's the hurdle through the journey is about what's the business value. I mean, that's always is the guiding principle before we go down the path of implementing a tool, is to have those engagements with business leaders and executive buy-in we talked about in the planning phase, where we are about to embark on a journey, and my experience has been governance is a journey, literally, and it is taken up as a POC or a small time boxed exercise, and then scaled up into a tool that's implemented. It's a technology implementation, and then it's embedded into the business, and rolls forward as a continuous improvement journey. So stakeholder expectations from the get-go, it's really, really important to have a very tightly defined scope of the POC, and request the relevant resources to support that journey. And once the time box is done, then we show the results back to the business and say, okay, before we started on the POC, this was the scope. We looked at our objective was data literacy. We wanted to catalog data assets. In 3 months, we have looked at 4 different data sources. We have cataloged 6,000 tables, at 10,000 columns, and we published definitions and all that. And we could show the business back, the value back to the business, and say, before we were not able to, we don't have anything of this sort, that a new user who walks into the business has the ability to search and find data in the business. In the past, it used to happen by buddying with an expert, or talking to different stakeholders and learning it as an exploratory exercise. But now it's post hoc. It's given as a default. Every employee has access to a search and find tool, and that's how it gets embedded into the data fabric as the organization evolves in the data management practice.
Think global, act local, right? It's probably a pretty good segue into the actual the management phase of these types of programs, right? You've managed stakeholders' expectations. You've constrained your scope. You have a really clear idea of what you want in terms of value from a small program of work, and really when we talk around that next step, and where Revenite have been a lot of the time is how do you scale this to an enterprise level? And when we refer to enterprise, we mean across the entire organization, wing to wing. How do you then get that snowball to just keep going and build momentum? So yeah, really is how do you make that happen? How do you scale data governance?
Yeah. Thanks, Remy. That's the management part is. I think I'll take one step back when we talk about management in the first in the implementation part. We went down to the four steps we took in the implementation part is around creating a framework, identifying personas, creating an operating model, and iterative delivery. Now that is communicated to the stakeholders involved for the POC, and now that is going to be scaled up as an enterprise. We're saying we do the same journey, the four steps. Now we are proposing to manage at an enterprise level. Is stewardship. Is now we talked about framework and personas, and now we are formalizing the roles. And when we're scaling up a governance program at an enterprise, ownership or accountability plays a big role in successfully embedding a data governance program into BAU. If there is no owners for data or no owners for or no stewards for managing the governance sort of activities, the program is sort of, I would say, crippled. It makes it very difficult for teams to scale it up to an enterprise level. So stewardship, we can call it stewardship, but stewardship has multiple sort of personas involved in it. We call it a data owner or a data custodian, a data steward, a data SME. In addition to the stewardships, we have what I call as governance partners, enterprise architects, data engineers, cybersecurity engineers, cloud professionals, BI and analytics. All these sort of people partner with the business to sort of scale it up to an enterprise level. Now, once a stewardship model is defined, then we look at objectives. What are we aiming to achieve when we scale up to an enterprise level? Classic example, every enterprise is now currently looking at it, is data quality. What are our current challenges with data quality? And the example we talked about the tool, and how can we assess a tool that's going to address the data quality issues within the enterprise, and how do we operate within the enterprise working with all those stewards or data owners to address that data quality problem. Now, once we have the objective sorted, then the implementation happens, and then the management part is continuous improvement. We continue to monitor data quality, publish the data quality metrics to the business, identify issues, remediate issues in the source. And there is an operating model that we talked about in the earlier slide, is about how do we run this engine moving forward. There is a problem, works with the relevant data steward, engages with the data engineer, understands where the data is coming from and what sort of remediation we need to do in the tool, so that there is the results, the data quality metrics show an improvement or a hindrance. Like, yes, we did something yesterday, but it did not change the data quality of that particular master data element or a data point. So when we are scaling up, it's important to look at this. There's always about people and processes. Lots of expertise in every business around data. So there are data savvy people everywhere in the business, but I did not see data stewards as roles that are appointed full time. So my experience has been data stewardship is on borrowed time. I am working with an SME who already has a day job, and he agreed to help me with achieving this particular POC. So it's really important to identify those keen cookies, or people who care about the business, who can contribute, go above and beyond, and help projects like this succeed. It's important to have like a good reward and recognition program to encourage people to take ownership or stewardship of data in the absence of an OPEX role that actually calls it as a data steward. I think that's one way to encourage those people from a highly engaged business stakeholder to a change champion who is actually looking at continuously improving things. A risk to the scaling up of the program in management on a BAU basis is risk of losing employees. Like if that steward who was helping me do this job decides to leave the business, everything goes back to square one, because there is no other, or there could be a new person who comes on board who may or may not be engaged as the previous person. So reward and recognition is an important element. I have noticed is that it's important to keep people engaged, retain the talent into the business, which will actually help progress the governance work forward.
It's it's super important. I think your comment around retention of good people, I think everyone can on this call can probably agree that's a pretty important thing to look after your employees, to look after the people in the space now, with the market how it is, and yeah, just down to a human level, right? The actual just reward and recognition of making people feel good for contributing or helping with something that may not necessarily have been their sole responsibility. I mean, we see that in our business. I've seen that in past companies. It's an email calling out someone's good work. It's a gift voucher or a food voucher somewhere. Those small things. Not saying it's just that. There's others as well, but those things go a really long way,
Yeah.
and they're really important. They're the business experts, and they're crucial to actually continue data governance. Expanding and kind of taking over the whole organization.
Yeah, I agree. And I think my experience has been like, there are two ways to do governance, I guess. What I have observed in the industries I have worked with, it starts as a project and it's handed over to the business, but there is no support model in the business to take it or run with it. And the knowledge, it's like hey, we've deployed this new tool. Here is how you log into it, and here's you take it. But there's processes underneath, accountabilities underneath that gets sort of lost in translation. Some other organizations they don't do governance as a project. They do it as OPEX. They do it even the technology implementation happens as an OPEX, a CapEx, but it comes into the business as OPEX. So there are resources ready to take it on. Resources called data quality analyst or a data steward or some sort of SME whose primary job is to look at governance, is to look at what is happening with my data assets, who is accessing it, do I have a data model associated with that asset, what sort of reports are published, and who are the reports published to, and what sort of regulatory compliance am I supposed to adhere to in that particular domain or in that particular data asset. So that sort of things is scattered in multiple business units. So we could say our cybersecurity will look at who is accessing it, our enterprise architecture will look at who is doing it. But then it's a working group exercise with data governance partners and the business. So it's a collective exercise, and when it becomes an additional responsibility, it sort of drops down in priorities because business critical activities always take precedence.
That's it. Well, then the other thing to probably be wary of is that, once you've done all this good work, you've started with the proof of value, you've started to gain momentum in the business, you're looking at, getting to that enterprise scale. There's management of that. Things will go wrong, things will change. How do you embed that to become, I don't know, without lack of a better term, BAU or day in the life, right? How does it become normal?
Yeah.
And that's probably, the final talking point is how do you maintain all that good work, and how do you turn data governance into something that just becomes everyday life in a business?
Yeah, it's business engagement. I think I always hone in on business engagement is all about, I always seen data as a service. So my view on data governance is I am providing a service to the business, either to ensure the business is compliant or mitigating the risk or empowering analytics. So it's always about change management. We work with decision makers who have problems they deal with day in, day out. And as data professionals, I think you all would agree with this, is most of the times the problem are either linked to an issue with data quality or an issue with user access or an issue with self-service. So that's where it boils down to. In my experience, I've noticed that in one of these three key things, there's a problem a decision maker is worried about is I'm getting 6 reports and they all report the same thing and they don't say the same thing. It sort of working with those business leaders and say, okay, what is happening under the hood? And the only way I have learned to do that is by establishing partnerships and telling business leaders that we are here to provide a service. and we understand your problem, and we plan, prioritize, and do all the things we've been talking about, prerequisites, planning, implementation, and management, and make sure that the business engagement actually helps us with resourcing. um, we can solve the business problem, but we need business expertise in order to address the problem in the right way. And the next step towards that, embedding the technology into the business, is training and support. And we all know, and we have all seen that, employee turnover is quite, I guess, high over the last few months. People come, people go, and when we have a new user onboarded, especially from a governance perspective, there needs to be an onboarding mechanism and say, okay, here's your access to Calibra. These are the training manuals. These are the training videos. If you have any questions, these are your contacts that you need to talk to. Anything else, and so on. These are business training materials and IT training materials. So educating new users who are coming on board, and getting them involved into the governance journey, it sort of helps to manage that implementation that we've done. And the last one, the most important one, is about user adoption, measuring success, creating feedback loops, and developing iterative responses. So it's really important to sort of involve users in the entire journey at different levels. It's not, but when I talk about it, I'll give you an example. Is when we onboarded Calibra, we were tracking users. It was 75 when we went live. A month after we went live, 3 months later, dropped to 60. 5 months later, dropped to 20, and it's on a declining trend, as I was explaining. Why is it a declining trend? Is because we started off with the wrong metric. We assumed all the 70 people we trained are going to use it every day, but the metric was wrong, because the platform we have delivered is a literacy platform. It helps people to search and locate. And a generic example I would give you is, how many times are we using the dictionaries we have in our home? We only look at it when we come across a word that we don't understand. Same with Calibra, the platform we're looking at. Is we expected users to be on the platform quite often, but the reality is different. Users were still going to the platform, but they're only going when they need to find something, when they need to look for something. So adjusting the metrics and creating the feedback loop with the decision makers or data owners, keeping them engaged as we go through, creating data owners forums every quarter, the data steward forums every month, just talk about data related issues, and create that response loop back and say, what can we improve, and how can we make sure this platform stays relevant and adding business value.
Yeah, nice. I think training and support's definitely my favorite of the three there. I mean, you said before that technology is is an enabler, right? You need the people, you need processes to make that work. So I think it's probably important when you're looking at tool assessment, or just your data governance process in general, right? How are people going to, not only from technology but the business, going to find, understand, use a certain piece of software, technology, or the process itself. So that's really crucial.
Yeah.
But look, that's probably everything for the main content, Sri.
Thanks.
I will before I jump to some questions, I'll and appreciate all the insight. I'm sure there'll be some questions flowing in over the next couple of minutes. I thought I'd jump over to a couple of things, just circling back around Revenite's capability. I said before that we've supported businesses and clients end to end, right? It's all the way from strategy. What comes out of that is delivery and support. So there's two things we've kind of formulated to help people and people on this call with their governance journey. The first is maybe familiar to the people that came to part one, but it's only for listeners that are or people that are attending these webinars. But it's a half-day assessment workshop. And what that's designed to do is be high level. It's bringing together not only yourselves, but key stakeholders and potentially sponsors from your organization, along with the people that drive data governance and the leadership team here from Revenite. It's a time for us, we can share some of our IP, our insights, learnings from past engagements, and really what the output and the value from that is maybe a recommendation or series of recommendations at a high level to help you along that journey. And that can be at any stage, or all four that we've touched on today. Look, it's absolutely at no cost. And once again, depending on where you are or what your problem or what you want out of that workshop, we'll take a pragmatic approach. We'll fit something, we'll fine tune it. And if you're interested in something like that, just let me know. I'll throw up a poll now. If anyone wants to learn more, have a conversation over the coming weeks, I can definitely get in touch and talk about how that would be valuable for you and your business. And the second is our data catalog fast start. For people who aren't aware of Revenite's fast start methodology, these are really an accelerator program designed to realize or produce value within a short period of time, typically 3 to 4 weeks in this case as well. And where this has come from is seeing that now with the rise of analytics, with data, with metadata management becoming really a priority for businesses to drive operational decision making, help with strategic planning, a data catalog is something to Shree's earlier point, right, can be really efficient, is really helps along that journey of data governance and taking it to an enterprise scale. Obviously, we act local, and all the time we're thinking global. But what's included in this is similar to the beginning of a half-day assessment workshop. We'll bring together the business people. It could be cross-functional. It could be within a certain problem or item that's already been identified, but really, helping you to identify what those are and triaging them accordingly. The main part really is to and what predicates data catalog is identifying critical data elements and business terms that are going to be used with a single use case, and we'll help you to define what that is and what it looks like. And with all the information and the requirements gathering and understanding those two sides, we'll be in a really good position to recommend a data catalog tool that's out there right now. So we have experience integrating, implementing, and then helping a business adopt products like Elation and Purview as well. But along Revenite's journey, it's not just the business, but what we're built off the people that work for us. Our consultants and people that form our data governance practice, they have experience working with Calibra, with Informatica, Alex Solutions. So they bring individual perspectives of what each tool can do, the costing involved, all those things are taken into consideration when we, help provide you their recommendation. That's what the fast start encompasses. Obviously, we're here as a support partner as well. Further delivery, the things around change management, we can help with that too. But yeah, and it'll normally come an introduction or putting you in touch with the right people or the right platform. That's where it comes from. So look, if you're interested in that as well, jump over to the poll section on the right hand side, either the half-day workshop if you want to find out more, or the data catalog fast start. I'm more than happy to share a bit of information just around what's really included in that. But that is enough about us. I'll probably pass it back to you guys. Is there any final questions for Shree, for myself at this stage? You may have covered it all, Shree. I feel like you did. I feel like you gave some pretty tangible examples, some good advice. Maybe it. And if there is no questions, I appreciate we're nearing 6 o'clock. Look, Shree's a pretty friendly guy. He's busy at the moment, but if you need to get in touch with him, I'm sure he won't mind a connection on LinkedIn, a message, or if you want to, if you've got any follow-up questions, shoot me an email. Get in touch with myself. I'm sure that you guys all have my address and my phone number.
Thanks, Remy.
Stephen, what can you really achieve in a half-day workshop? You'd be surprised. In 4 hours, there's a lot of stuff you can get through. It is designed to be high level. It'll be sometimes even just sharing war stories from previous deliveries. What goes well, what goes wrong. It's amazing how it can start to just shape some of your thoughts. But yeah, they've been successful in the past, and there's normally something tangible that comes out at the end of that. But if you're keen to have a chat, Stephen, I haven't spoken with you before. Let's catch up maybe sometime this week or next week and I can tell you a bit more about it. Shri, do you have any more final comments?
No final comments. I think what a recommendation I guess is when embarking on governance journey, it takes time. It takes time to deliver value. It takes time to change behaviors. It takes time to engage and maintain those relationships and business partnerships. My learning is business leaders experience with analytics is product based. It's when a business leader, we talk about analytics to business leaders, they expect a product in terms of a dashboard or a data set. Governance is a service, and it's forever, that's where the challenge comes in, is basically, oh, when can I see an output? Well, I cannot really show an output, but it's a behavioral change. We talk about cybersecurity, user access management, data quality. These things take time, whether with or without a tool, but it requires a consistent engagement and resource allocation for any organization to get value from it. And I think that's my sort of parting note is, look at governance as a long term journey. Even if we are delivering short box or short time box exercises, it is valuable to take that 3 year strategic view and tell the leaders upfront that it's going to take time.
Transparency bit and having that long-term vision is key. Yeah, we always use the word data governance can be nebulous at times, right? It's kind of hard to yeah, make it tangible, but there are ways of doing that, I think, and you've touched on a lot of them today, Shri. So I appreciate you you taking the time. I know there'll be a part 3, a part 4, or something that we'll work on together in the future. But no, I appreciate it. I hope everyone who attended got some takeaways, and yeah, looking forward to speaking with you all and helping along the data governance journey in any way we can.
Thanks for the opportunity, Remy and Revenite team. And yeah, if you have any questions, please let me or Remy know, and we'll be able to get back to you.
Awesome. Hey, cheers, guys. It's still sunny out there, Shri. Everyone go
Take the
a
bike
drink
out.
or a walk. Yeah, enjoy a walk around the park or something like that. See you all again soon. Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
everyone.